associate professor of finance at the ICMA Centre in Henley Business School, and I joined Henley back in October 2012 as a lecturer in finance after my PhD and a few years of fellowship at Warwick Business School. For some years, I was a regular full-time teaching and research lecturer, and then in 2016, for personal circumstances, I actually converted my role being a part-time academic role, which is not often the case for academics to do. And it wasn't, and during that part-time period, I also often worked remotely, which was not often, well, not that common back in time before the pandemic struck. Even if I was not always physically there, most of the time I was, but also when I wasn't, my involvement with Henley as community of colleagues, friends, and students has never really ended. In fact, it's since 2016 that I've been the organizer of our annual Women in Business event, which brought us together with, student staff and great female professionals that have come to visit us to discuss together challenges or opportunities of women in business. Despite my technical background is in finance, I have been writing quite regularly for Henley topics related to gender diversity in corporate leadership, women participation in the labor force, and all the topics of flexible work arrangements, again, before COVID as well, to facilitate women and parents in the workforce. And that is drawn to my personal interest in the matter, as well as a personal experience as a mother of two young children working as part-time academic as well. My research has been always very active. I love doing my research. So even if I was part-time, I was traveling around for conferences and trying to build up a solid network of co-authors and researchers. And I think all this intense work has then brought me in 2020 to get my promotion from lecturer to associate professor in finance, of course. And that was a very defining moment for me because it was, all the experience I had was particular. I had during this year part-time, 2 maternity leaves, a pandemic, and actually was a defining moment to see me as an academic, not just as a work, but also as part of my identity. In 2022, so in last October, then I have been appointed alongside with my wonderful colleague, Melissa Carr, as one of the 2 directors of equity, diversity and inclusion at Henley Business School. I've been in the past member of, EDI committees and groups and have supported the EDI agenda in Henley, which is so much important in our business school, but becoming now taking the leadership on this initiative is really a great honor. We have just started, and as you know, EDI is a very delicate and sensitive matter that encompasses basically everything we do within Henley. But we definitely have a great teamwork and the right energy and enthusiasm to bring forward the projects we have planned for. Yes, so as a teaching and research staff member, of course, as an academic, I do have, connected teaching and research activities plus the EDI involvement, and that is all reflected in my current projects. So on the one side, I would talk about what is the past experience I had. So I am teaching a module compulsory module for all finance students, all those who take finance. So not just our students in the ICMA Centre, but also accounting students and real estate. And what I teach them is essentially the meaning of the price of financial securities. So how do we come up with that value? And all the work we do in that module is what is done also in part of my research, which is trying to understand the information that is embedded behind that number. So how do we come up with that number? What type of information is incorporated? And ultimately, how people share that information. Is it efficiently shared, or there are barriers to the information to be incorporated into financial instruments and financial markets? And I've done this for a long period of time, in particularly focused on information related to credit and liquidity risk, and particularly on credit derivative markets, which a few years ago were considered to be a very innovative market, but now they are more conventional than they used to be before. So this whole area is very much what I've been trained to do from early stages as an academic in asset prices. However, as we got along with new involvement in initiative of EDIs and sharing, experience and ideas with colleagues internally and externally with researchers, I've taken up now projects in empirical corporate finance, which really excite me, because these are projects also with some EDI sensitivity. So, for example, one of the projects I'm working on now for a publication is a project related to gender diversity in corporate boards and managerial leadership in companies. So what we study in this project is what impact women have on financial stability for firms, and therefore credit risk specifically, which is one of my core areas. So what we see in this project is, for instance, a confirmation of what in gender studies is called the glass cliff theory, which means that essentially women are more often appointed as a CEO and CFO of companies to replace men at times when these companies are in a crisis period. So they have lower financial stability. That's why we think about it as being a glass cliff. It's an opportunity given to women, but at the same time, a very risky position. What we see, however, also is that women CEO and CFOs are also able to turn things around for companies. And so we see that after their appointment, they do reduce credit risk and so improve financial stability on the short to medium term for those companies. Another interesting analysis we have done instead is the impact of women on corporate boards. And the sample we are using is a very large sample of firms where we see really very few women sitting on corporate boards. And so quite surprisingly, we see that they actually have either no impact or even a negative impact on financial stability. And that is because there are too few of them, and so there is no real inclusion of their voices within the corporate boards. So we talk about a concept of tokenism, which means having women just because you have to, firm appointing women on board because they have to look as being sensitive to D&I topics, but not effectively incorporating their voices, so only having few of them. And this diversity is not effective and may work even against the board being, productive and efficient in decision making. So this is one of the projects I'm working with, which is obviously related to finance and EDI at the same time. And then thanks to the research and work I'm doing also with a young doctoral researcher, we are looking instead into the impact of the ethnic identity of CEOs on firm strategical decisions. So what we are looking at specifically are CEOs that are American and born in the US, but they have obviously diversity of origins because their ancestors come from other countries. And so we try to connect the culture of their ancestral countries of origin to the decisions they take in the firms, related in particular to corporate social responsibility and international acquisitions. So this is another strand of interesting research I am doing at the moment. To me, I think the main unchanged key for success remains resilience, which goes along with other points. But, the ability to cope with, to cope mentally, emotionally, and structurally with changes, it's so key, not just to organizations and businesses, which are effectively living organisms, but also to individuals. And there are two elements in that, in my opinion. On one side, one component is obviously being very elastic and flexible so that you remain yourself in your core. Again, that applies to individuals and businesses alike. So you don't change your core settings and focuses, even if things around are changing or if there is a crisis. On the other side, so one side you have, I think, elasticity and flexibility. On the other side, you must have curiosity. So that in that way, as an organization, you're going to see the changes and the crisis as something you want to understand better. You are curious to investigate. You are somehow try to find opportunities between one challenge and the next one, opportunities that can improve you. And that is key of success of any individuals as well. You know, we are thrown among so many other challenges over our career path, but what really matters is whether you can do anything about it. So that's for me core. And I apply that topic to our post-COVID really time. You know, if we think about the workforce and the challenges that we had during that period, we did learn something so important. And there is a risk that all the, all the learning curve that we have kind of rode, it's kind of like getting lost between returning to normality. But we effectively have learned how to cope with many things together. And effectively, we have remained productive in such a difficult time. We have used new tools, such as, again, effective remote working, working from home, using presence in the organization, so physical presence in a more effective and efficient way. And that is all to the advantage of, of how we can manage now processes and procedure going forward. So that will be, for me, really the key of success, resilience and learning from changes.